Right, so I want to make a video updating everyone as usual, and then get into some other important stuff. Now, Canada's up to 66,839 cases with 4,629 dead. Alberta's up to 6,157 confirmed cases, 116 dead, with 181,107 confirmed tests. Now, again, the ratio to recovered to confirmed continues to go up. We had just 59 new cases. I believe yesterday we were at just over 4,000 recovered. So again, we're having probably double as many people recover every day as we've had actually test positive, and this has been happening for probably 8 or 9 days now. So like I keep mentioning too, I mean, you look at the hospital numbers too. Like the whole point of the lockdown in the first place was that so that the hospitals weren't overwhelmed. Well, guess what? We have in the whole province we have not even we have 30 people in the ICU. Are you telling me that 30 people in the whole province is overwhelming the system? Like, are you joking? There's got to be individual, like the U of A hospital probably has more than 30 ICU beds. Again, I don't know off the top of my head, but I'd be pretty surprised if they didn't. Um, so how does it make any sense that we're still pretty much locked down aside from a select handful of things? The only way that businesses can go back to normal is to basically cripple their ability still to to sell and to make money. You can only have so many people in there at once. You have to follow a million different regulations on top of the million regulations you already had to follow. So again, the whole point being is that the reason that people want, at least the reason that the intelligent people that want to go back is that they recognize number one, this isn't the doomsday virus. We drastically overreacted. Like I don't think it's even possible to state how much we overreacted to this. The death rate for people under the age of 40, I believe, is almost exactly the same as the flu. Over 80% of the deaths came from long-term care homes, which means regardless of whether or not we would have completely shut things down in the first place or kept things completely open, the deaths would have been, we're talking a single digit difference at most. So for all the people saying, oh, if we didn't lock everything down, we would have had massive outbreaks and all this kind of stuff. Well, the infection rate would have been higher, but the amount of deaths would have been almost exactly the same. And again, if someone like me was running things going into it, number one, we would have closed the borders a lot earlier. We would have more than likely have been skeptical of the BS coming from the WHO, in which case we would have kept things open aside from nursing homes, and we more than likely wouldn't have experienced any more cases because we would have taken it seriously from day one, not completely believe the WHO's lies. And again, that's not my opinion. Objectively, the WHO said there was no evidence of human to human transmission in January. They were wrong about that. That's not an opinion. You have people, you have the people within the Canadian government saying, oh, masks don't work, closing borders don't work, and then they turned around, oh, yep, all of a sudden borders do work, all of a sudden masks do work. We went from masks don't work to the only way we're going to be able to reopen is if everybody's forced to wear a mask. Like, can we keep things in the middle for once too? These people that we have to go on from far end of the spectrum here to the far end of the spectrum there, and this is part of the reason that that some people are reacting so like the people that have like the 5G is the example, in that because the government completely overreacted in one direction, you have people who completely overreact in the other direction. And that's the problem, is if the government could just keep their head on straight for once, people would be less likely to overreact in the other direction. But because the government is every bit as much of a conspiracy theorist as the 5G people, I would say that the 5G people are even more right than the government's been so far. At least they're right about some things. At least we know for sure that 5G does have some negative health effects. The debate is just how much. The government's been wrong about everything. Like again, so and again, that just goes to show just how much we've botched this whole situation, and that's the people that the average person would look at as a complete like kook is more right than the government. Like that's where we're at in Canada right now. That's just how bad our government is. Some of it's incompetence, some of it's just wanting power, but again, that's where we're at. Um, but anyway, the one thing I would mention too is I don't believe. I mean, it's obviously possible, but I don't believe the 5G theory yet. And I don't think it's. I don't think the idea of conspiracy theory is people who label stuff conspiracy theories are people who just don't want to debate. There's theories. There's correct theories and there's false theories. And although the one thing about the 5G is it at the very least it's definitely a massive coincidence. And I think a lot of the problem is a lot of these people labeling the 5G people conspiracy theorists, which again I don't think that the 5G is what's directly causing the virus, so don't twist my words. Again, people are going to do it no matter what. But again, I just want to make that clear. But at the very least, um, it is a very big coincidence in that the city of Wuhan was the first city and a major city in the world to implement 5G. And again, a month later-ish, all of a sudden this outbreak hits. So at the very least, it is a massive coincidence. And that's the problem too, is a lot of these people, they don't understand what the 5G people are actually arguing. They just think that they're conspiracy theorists, but when you actually listen to what they're saying, it makes more sense than you thought it would actually make. Like, but again, that's just what I wanted to point out. But um, this is from Ezra Levant. He goes on to say, "Good news, not a single person in the Canada under the age of 20 has died from the virus, not one. Only two were admitted to the ICU and both recovered. So why are schools closed? And waiters, waitresses, and bartenders and store clerks, usually young people, banned from work?" The other thing to point out too is that only 12 people that under the age of 40 have died, and over only 74 people in the 40 to 59 age bracket have died. So 95% of the people that have died from the virus are over the age of 60, which means if we would have just told people in nursing homes and told people over the age of 60 to quarantine, then the outbreak would have been pretty much non-existent and we could have continued to go on about our normal days. So that's the problem, is that these people that want the one size fits all approach is that it's not true. Like it's not based in science. And I can't stand these people that lecture you about whenever you try and debate them on climate change. But oh, you're anti-scientific, you don't have any science. But yet they'll turn around and argue stuff like this, that someone who has a whatever 8-9% chance of dying should face the same level of, quarantine, shutdown, rules against what they can and can't do as someone who has literally a 0.1% chance of dying. We're talking about people with 100 times better chance of dying, but yet they should face the same level of quarantine as the average person, in their 20s or 30s. That doesn't make any sense. That's not based in science. That's not based in science whatsoever. It's so obvious at this point that anybody still pretending it's not the case is a complete and utter idiot. And I hate to make it so blunt, but it's just the truth. And that the obvious solution here is that everybody who is under the age of 60 should go back to work. There's nothing to worry about. Again, you have a 0.1, 0.2% chance, almost exactly the same death rate as the flu. So all these, I mean, in areas like maybe the Cargill plant it would be the one exception to this, and I would still stress maybe because there's nothing saying they can't, put a hazmat team in there, wipe every inch of the place down, continue to quarantine people who test positive. But like we don't when talking about this, we don't need to worry about the exceptions right off the bat. We worry about the exceptions after. In that there's no reason, like absolutely no reason whatsoever, that everybody else can't go back to their normal lives. And don't give me this whole BS, ooh, there's going to be a second wave. Well, again, we can't keep things locked down forever, too. And the same people claiming that, oh, if we don't keep things locked down, there's going to be a second wave, are the same people who thought that the first wave was going to be 10 times worse than it actually was. They're the kind of people that said, oh, borders don't work, don't wear a mask, all this kind of stuff. So again, um, it's the whole, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, and that these people have fooled us once. And again, I don't believe that these people just got things wrong. I don't see how professionals could get things so wrong. I don't believe that. So there's clearly at least somewhat of a motivating reason that these people are lying. well, it may not be outright. It may be, hey, make this a little worse than it actually is. You'll get more funding, kind of something that isn't necessarily conscious. But again, it's obvious at this point that there's clearly something else going on. The reason for the lockdown at this point clearly is no longer to, let's keep people safe, must save lives. It's so obvious. So anybody who still wants to keep things locked down, there's clearly other things going on. A lot of people are just flat out brainwashed and they still think this is the doomsday virus. And then there's the people at the top that clearly want to try and grab power to make money, to do all kinds of things. And that's one thing that I can't stand about these leftists complaining about. Oh, all these business owners just want to get people back to work so they can go back to exploiting them. But yet they couldn't care less about these government employees and people within the government that raise their own salaries during this pandemic, if you want to call it that. They're continuing to grab more and more power for them. Do you not care about that exploitation? Again, that's why those people have zero credibility. If you only care about exploitation in certain circumstances, you don't actually care. So again, another thing I wanted to point out. This is from Maxime Bernier. He's saying we're receiving lots of emails from Canadians who immigrated here to flee authoritarian countries. With the loss of freedom, firearms ban, online censorship, and growing government control of the economy, they are worried that what they fled is coming here. I am too. Now, these are most likely immigrants who were PPC supporters, or at the very least Maxime Bernier supporters. So they're clearly the more right-leaning, freedom-loving immigrants, which is the minority, but again, still a decent percent. And the one thing I wanted to point out is that why are we doing this as Canada, like as Canadians too? Like, why are we doing this? The problem is it's just a classic, the classic circle, and that people gain freedoms, things start to go well, people get complacent, they get entitled, and because of that, people start to take advantage, and then they lose their freedoms. They lose everything they fought for. It's the hard times create strong men create weak times. And then the classic cycle, and that's the problem is that we're in the weak men cycle right now, and that down the road hopefully we'll be in the strong men strong times, but we're not in it right now. And that's something that goes to show too that these people who left authoritarian countries are seeing the same stuff that's coming up in Canada too. And this is something that you really can't stand to. And that whenever you try and debate these leftists on this kind of stuff, they'll call you a Nazi and a fascist and all this BS. But yeah, it's so ironic that nowadays it's the people who are don't want to censor things, who don't want to have censorship, who don't want to get rid of free speech, who don't want more government control of the economy. It's almost like the people they're claiming are fascists were the people that were most anti-fascist in the past, and it's almost like the people accusing people of being fascists are the ones who are supporting the same policies that the Nazis brought in and the fascists brought in the past. It's almost like that's going on, and that's something that really needs to be recognized. This is from Corey Morgan. Now, he goes on to say, this is something I mentioned, but I just wanted to bring it up again. He said, I don't really want to hear fear mongering stuff from experts predicting a second pandemic wave when one considers how brutally the experts overstated the risk of the first wave. The plague simply never happened. Now, again, this is something I pointed out, but again, I want to reiterate because there's so many people still completely brainwashed on the topic, and that the quote unquote first wave never materialized. It didn't even come close. The death rate is what we're looking at 20, 30 times lower than what they originally thought it was. Again, it's almost exactly the same as the flu for people under the age of 40 or 50. It's actually you're actually more likely to die from the flu in certain age categories, I believe. So again, for anybody still supporting everybody be forced to shut down, then you're by default supporting shutting the economy down in times of bad flu seasons. But no one's even coming close to suggesting that. So again, you have no credibility, you have no critical thinking skills. You're just a brainwashed moron who believes whatever CBC and all these idiots are telling you. And it really bothers me too because I'm watching CBC right now and they have someone on talking about, oh, if we don't keep things shut down, there's going to be this terrible second wave. Again, like, I don't trust you. Like, I don't trust you. Trusting the experts works from the start, but when experts are wrong about something, you don't trust them. Like, Does anybody take financial advice from someone who's flat broke and in massive debt? Like, does anybody take financial advice from them? Do you take nutritional advice from someone who is, 100 pounds overweight and's had 3 heart attacks and they're in their 40s? Do you take nutritional advice from them? No. So no one in the right mind would take nutritional advice, or sorry, would take advice from quote unquote experts who were completely, it's not like they were just a little bit wrong. It's not like they said the death rate was 3-4% and it turned out to be 2. I would understand it there. They said the death rate was going to be 3 to 7%. It's actually 0.2 roughly. Again, we don't know the exact death rate. It continues to go down to every time that they continue to do more studies, test more people, the death rate continues to go down. So I would assume that it would continue to go down after that. So uh, anyway, last thing I wanted to bring up here is from Spencer Fernando. And again, this is another thing I've brought up before, but again, I wanted to reiterate it because a lot of people, something that a lot of people don't understand. And he says, when the government succeeds, they say, look how great we are, give us more power. When the government fails, they say, look what happens when we don't give us enough power, give us more. And this is the problem with government, in that no matter what, they get more money, they get more power. And again, this is especially the problem with leftist governments, because if they get in and they don't succeed, and take it with the gun ban too, it's, oh, we didn't take it far enough, we need more regulation, we need more laws, we need more power, you know and if it works, well, it's, guess what? Look at how great we are. This policy we implemented is working. Look at us. And that's the problem, is that the only way that we can have a society that works is if people make bad decisions, they face the consequences of the bad decisions. And guess what? The federal government completely botched this entire situation. And guess what? They get a pay raise. I mean, obviously the other MPs get a pay raise too. Justin Trudeau, guess what? He gets $2 million to renovate his house. How can anybody possibly argue in good faith for that? How can anybody possibly argue that? Like, imagine these crazy leftists, how up in arms they would be if some oil executive, had some massive scandal, uh, you know, completely botched. His company was going under, and he turned around and stole a bunch of money from his workers to renovate his house. Imagine the outrage. Like, imagine the outrage, and rightfully so. But when Justin Trudeau does it, none of these leftists care. And again, that's just why whenever you go on these, on social media and stuff, especially like Reddit, like r/Alberta, it's just these crazy leftists that just complain about the same two or three things over and over and over again. And the minute you try and open up any dialogue with them, they completely shut you down. Like, they'll just ban you. They won't even acknowledge you. So again, that's the problem. Like, that's the problem with those kind of people. So anyway, that's the video for today. If you'd like to, make sure that like and subscribe. Check out my PayPal and email. I got linked in the description. I appreciate any donations, but at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. And last couple things, as always, check me out on Twitter if you haven't already. Again, I just got Twitter, so follow me there. You can see my profile on the bottom left here. And then last thing, as always, check me out on BitChute if you haven't already too.